Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out on this beautiful day. I know you could be back home shoveling snow or cleaning off your roof, but you're in for a real treat today. Our own Bill Green. This is the first conversation series of the year, and Bill usually heads that off. And we always get a nice crowd to come out for Bill. Bill and I have been running around together since 1948. We both attended the first race at Watkins Glen. How old were we, Bill? About 2 years old then? That's 66 years ago or something like that. And Bill has been involved in racing since 1948. I know all of you in the room know him personally. He is our historian at the center. He has also been the historian for WGI and for the Glen region and other various organizations. If you have a question of any type, ask Bill. Kevin Huey and I here often play the game, let's try to stump Bill. What color were the wire wheels in the car that came in second in 1951 at Watkins Glen? And he'll tell you. He really is just amazing. He has his huge collection, probably which dwarfs what the IMRRC has. He's been collecting since that first year when he bought a program. I think he paid 50 cents for it. But he's been a member of the Glen region since 1958, and he is very knowledgeable on all things racing. And we're delighted that he agreed to kick off the first of our programs. We've got a great year going, and I'll just tell you what we're going to have upcoming. February 21st, Tony Vecchio will be talking about his new book. We had a little preview of that a month or two ago when he spoke before the public library. He had a fascinating career working at various tracks. And in March, we don't have the date yet, but we're having our model car show. Last year was our first model car show, and it was a tremendous success. It takes place over a couple of days. All kinds of individuals, whether they're professional collectors or amateurs, have been participating. And then in April, we're going to have another author, Martin Rudo, who has got a book, Long Straights and Hairpin Curves. It's the history of the Pacific Northwest racing, a very fascinating era of road racing. And then our own Randy Cook is coming back. I just was down in Daytona yesterday and had breakfast with him. Randy has written the book, Ferraris and Chevys. What's the actual title of it?
Something about bow-tied Chevrolet.
Bow-tied Chevrolets. Bow-tied Ferraris.
That's right.
And amazing, beautiful pictures in it, amazing number of Ferraris we've known over the years and loved. When they get to be a little bit old, they blow the engines, and it was much cheaper, and they probably were faster with putting Chevy engines in. And he's got pictures of almost all of them. In recent years, however, the owners have rediscovered the old engines and rebuilt them and put them in. It makes them more valuable. And we've got some more over the summer, but in September, we just met with some people. We're going to have a Can-Am reunion. As you know, the vintage car races will not be held in September, but they will have the Grand Prix Festival, and we'll have our event at the center, and that's the weekend after Labor Day. Jack Darren and Oscar Kowalski are going to bring a number of cars that from the Can-Am era, and we're going to have a panel. So we'll be getting out the full schedule soon, but we're delighted that Bill is here to kick this off, as he does annually. And please come back to the center for some refreshments afterwards. And, of course, Bill will answer questions. But when you go back, Al Robinson is not here today. He had a setback, and we've got a card that we're sending out to Al. So it'd be nice if you could all possibly sign that. I know that would bring a smile to his face. William Green.
Thank you very much, J.C. Welcome all of you to the, it says racing things. I also add to that trinkets. So trinkets could be anything, Good pack rats hang on to everything, and you sometimes wish you hadn't kept all that stuff, but it's always good fun. So first I want to thank Ted Marks for, in the main library, some of the support things on the wall. We have the trading cards that he had from the Canadian Grand Prix in '91. That's on exhibit, and several other things. So I want to thank Ted. I want to thank Rick and Kevin for helping me out on the engineering part. And so with that, let's do the first slide. This is what I call a handbill. You used to see them in restaurants at the Glen for many events, you know, going way back to 1952. This happens to be the Glen Classic, which was the last one before it went to the Glen 500. And it mentions, you know, the different, this was an SCCA national event. It was the only time that the Glen Classic was an SCCA national event. And of course, the following day was the midget race, the USAC midget race, which was run on Sunday, and everything started at 2 o'clock, although you could practice, but you couldn't race till after 2 o'clock, so they practiced and qualified and ran, because we had those things called a blue law. You'll see pictures of Briggs Cunningham, Walt Hanskin, and Harry Hoyer and Bob Johnson on there, and the nice, if you come to Watkins Glen in those days at night, you thought you were on Broadway, you know, it's the bright, glittery, nice lights. And in the movie Competition Driver, they went up and down the street, and boy, you sure thought you were in Times Square at New Year's Eve. But that was nice. These were done in several different colors, and on the reverse side was information on the races for the nationals, that is, not the midget race. There was a separate one you'll see. Next slide. There's the one for the midget. And of course, they didn't use the chicane, so that made it quite fast for them, and that happened. That's the second time the midgets of that era were at Watkins Glen, because the second Formula Libre, there were midgets in the Formula Libre race, because the first 2 Formula Libre races were sanctioned by the United States Auto Club. That was their road racing series in that day. But this was a different one, and these boys had raced several other places on Friday night and on Saturday night, and they came to Watkins Glen, set up, and raced. So it was quite nice to see these boys on the 2.3 mile course. Of course, that wasn't their league, of course. They were more of a quarter of a mile, fourth of a mile, to really do a good show for you. But anyways, that's the handbill I refer to as for the midget race. Next slide. This one here is another handbill, which is done for the second Formula Libre race. And of course, the photo up above is Joe Bonnier on his way to win the first Formula Libre race in 1958. And it goes on and tells different things. And of course, on the back side, also, it gives you more information. And it was done in several colors. Next slide. This here, I bought last year down to Stan Lobitz. There's 3 of these. It's a AAA entry blank for a midget show. And it's very simple. It tells the prize money and all that. And this one here is for Hohokus, New Jersey Speedway. So anyways, I thought you'd like to see what, this is before the war too. How easy it was to enter a race if you had a car and had some experience. Next slide. That's the backside of that. All those entry blanks like that had the supplementary regulations, and all you had to do was fill out the front side and produce your money, and you're all set. Next slide. This one here is down at Allentown Fairgrounds, and again, it's a standard form AAA before World War II. So it told you that when the entries closed and all that. Next slide. And again, this one here is at Woodside, and so they're all basically the same, but I wanted to give you a variety of where they did run with AAA events. Next slide. Now this one here is the Glen Paddock Club. This was an invitation. And of course, it told the different events the club functioned, which was the 6-hour race and the U.S. Grand Prix, and the privileges, the clubhouse, and the cost to be a member of the Paddock Club. And it was good viewing. And when it wasn't used for Paddock Club members, It was also, if you were lucky to get a party invitation to the Friday night party, Saturday night party for U.S. Grand Prix or 6 hours. And they had lots to eat there, I'll tell you that, and lots of champagne. We used to capture the guy from Great Western and say, leave that half bottle here. So we had a lot of fun with that. Next slide. This is of the modern times and the invitation and where it was located at the Glass Center, because WGI usually used that as for that particular race, the Camel Continental or the Cup race was where the parties were mostly if they weren't at the Glen Club. Next slide. This is last fall's brochure for the Vintage Grand Prix, the downtown events, schedule events, and Bob Gillespie's drawing at Stone Bridge. And it gives you pretty good information on both sides. If you come here and it's the first time and say, oh, gee whiz, we really don't know, well, you just pick one of them up and you're all set. The only correction I'm going to tell you on there is it says the secret's out. The festival will feature Austin Healey's in 2015. Well, that isn't going to happen. They withdrew. So, next slide. This is a credential. In the early years, they had paper credentials. This is an armband. The strings were removed, and this is what you wore along. If you didn't have, you had a press armband or a driver's armband. And if you look down in the corner, JC can vouch for this. CRA, that's Cameron Argensinger. He was general chairman, and he okayed whoever got this. It was okay to issue this pass. But there were a variety of colored things as far as the background on these official badges, and that's one of them. I've got some for 1948, which are a little bit bigger, and 49. But anyway, this is 50. So next slide. Now we go into the button era, which is neat. The 52 driver's badges, 51 through 1956 were all, for drivers, were all white background, black letters. And then there were different other ones, which either was RCA, Race Observer, Race Official. In some years they had three colored different ones for backgrounds. For a Race Official, you had one for Grand Prix Police. And also when they ran downtown, they had paper armbands. And, but as I say, these buttons were used of the different colors from 1951 to 1956. I know in 1955, they used a little piece of red tape, not very big, on the senior-most official badge, which denoted that you could go around the circuit where normally you couldn't go on the inside, because for 4.6, spectators were not allowed inside the track, only on the outside, not unless you were a landowner. You could go inside. And also the metal thank you badge up above there, it says race driver finisher. They were done really in 1950 through, even today, but different configurations. So that was quite nice. If you was a driver, you got that to keep and put in your trophy case. If you want anything, you put that with it and all that. They were different colors every year, so, of these aluminum type badges. Next slide. This is RCA, and the one with a little hole in it, that's the first badge or keeper for a member. You got, everybody that worked got one of those. So over the years, as far as 1956, they were different years. The buttons were different color. The souvenir thank you badges were too. And in the uniforms of RCA, they always were white coveralls and red lettering. They used to see, you could refer to them as a hash mark But each one of the red things on your right arm meant that was a race. Well, after a while, a lot of them guys worked lots of races, and it was clear up and down double row by the time you got in 1960, so they simplified it and they made it a blue one. That was 10 years, so, or 5 years, and then another color was for 10. So that left a little space on your arm instead of patches on it. But anyways, these were along with the buttons and some of the nice things that were given the volunteers. Next slide. This is a credential and a general mission, or not general mission, but it was a members thing for the Giants Despair Hill Climb, which is down near Wilkes-Barre, and that there was a ribbon, and it had a place where you could staple a piece of covering of plastic, those things you go to conventions to get, staple it on top, and then you had your name on there. And this lets you also over to Bryn Van Tidden, which it says Giants Despair and Road Race, and that was at Bryn Van Tidden over across the valley. Next slide. This is, we're going a little traveling. This is down in Floyd Bennett Field in the city of New York, out on the island. And this was a badge that you got at Floyd Bennett Field. And that race wasn't an SCCA race, it was a AAA race, and was organized by Alec Ullman. Of course, Phil Walters won the main race in the C4R Cunningham. Then you went out to one of the SAC Air Force Base at Lockbourne, and that was one of the credentials you received after you signed the waiver, or as some of the European drivers would say, indemnity form, so you could get your credentials and go on. And they're excellent collecting things, and sometimes you see them on eBay. Next slide. Now we're back to Watkins Glen, and there's one of the police badges. They normally were the yellow background. They go back as far as 1951. And of course, one of the two 1954 badges, which they had there. Then they had paper credentials, which was like a baggage tag, and that was pit pass. You also had, they referred to them at that time, today we use them as stickers so you can get in and park. They were called placards. And this is one of the general admission tickets in 1958, where you really cost a lot of money in those days, $3. Today they look at you and laugh for $3. But anyways, there's all kinds and shapes of the general admission tickets over the years. Next slide. In 1957, which I didn't display, they went to ribbons, and the most senior ribbon was a red one with a convention type isinglass or whatever, plastic with your name on it and all that. And then the blue one was the next one down, and eventually you had paper credentials for pit, paddock, and by that time we'd done away with the placards and we had stickers. But this is 1958, the first year that Kendall was involved with racing at Watkins Glen. And they did these 3 badges for that event that year with your name and whatever you did. And it was the only year that they ever did the badge for the press people. After that, it was all paper credentials. But this is a neat collection to have because they're colorful and all that. So, next slide. Up here is the first and second USA Grand Prix. And I didn't put in the official one, it was a different color, but each year they had, for 2 years, these badges like that. And by 62, for Formula One, and 61, they had the paper credential. And then if there was a thing like a double X or triple X or 00, that was stapled on the bottom where you see press. That lets you go further than the press room. And then one year in I believe it was 1964, I know it was, you had a thing that stapled on the very bottom of there is the picture of the press room. And when they put the second floor on the press room, then it would say first floor or second floor you had privileges, or both. So, but anyways, next slide. Now we'll go travel a little bit, and this is at Cumberland. And they were sponsored by Esso, the event was, and you see the different numbering systems and all that. And these are highly collectible. I've got more than what you got here in my collection, but this is just a sample to show you what credentials they had when they were at Cumberland, long before they went to Nelson's Ledges. Next slide. This is Indianapolis badges. I bought both of these last year at Hershey, and these are silver ones. This is the high credential, and you could go both in the garages and the pits every day except race day. Now I'll come back and explain why. But anyways, these here were sort of honoring different things, especially in Goodyear and Bear in engineering and stuff like that in Valvoline. But anyways, this here, I paid $300 for the 1951 one and the 1976 one, I believe. 77, that was a little bit cheaper, that was $50. But what I was going to come back to was, that's great on those days. This also got you free parking in the inside, all month long except race day. Then you had to have a sticker. Wherever it would let you go, they'd give you a sticker. On race day, when you registered, when you first got your badges, you had a card that went on the back of this, and it had numbers. The years I went, I always had 15s. That let you 1/2 hour before the actual race on race day. And it was good for both silver and bronze. The bronze one they used for the garage area. You couldn't go in the pit area when they were on carburetor day or what else. But there was a way of getting there. I remember first year I went, I had a bronze one, but I had a 15 for race day. Charlie Lytle says, here's what you do. They call them yellow shirts, which were the security guys. He says, this guy I owe a picture. He says, when I get him, start to give the picture, you go on by. So I did. Once you're in there, they don't bother you. But you go out and come back in, you're out of luck. But these are excellent souvenirs. You know, if you went to the race, that was an excellent souvenir. My oldest Indianapolis badge is 1948. But the first metal badge like this, bronze and silver, was 1938. They weren't very handsome, you know. They had a number on them and probably the year. It wasn't until 1947 that they started to do the honor system. And, you know, some they have repeated and some not. I know the 1947 is the old pagoda, which has been replaced, and then the other pagoda, which now replaced, similar to what the pagoda, which was a Chinese type or Japanese type building with the curved things. But they also have today, along with your badges, to add it, you put something around your neck and it tells you can go in the media room during race day, or it's also your assignment up in the press box on the main grandstand on the main straightaway. And also there's one for free food too. It's punched out on this other card. But anyways, the other thing that they had, and they have now, which are, I believe, armbands, is for the Winner's Circle. Years ago, there were T-shirts that said official Winner's Circle photographer. And then they went to armbands and all that. But you had to have a badge. It didn't matter which one. So, but that's a piece of what Indy history. And my collection isn't full. And you get down to 1946 back to 1938, you'll find out it costs just about as much as a 1927, 28, 29 program would be. You're talking $2,000, pretty close to it. And I know that if I ever get 29 and 28. I have a 27. I'll buy the repo ones after that because I sure ain't gonna go in debt for a lot of that. But anyways, at Indy there was a really neat way that you were an official. And in AAA days, you always had a AAA armband, which said Indianapolis 500. The same way with USAC when you had an armband of some sort. Next slide. This is a thing they used on the same order that went with your credential at Daytona. And I don't know whether it was a bronze, or not a bronze, a silver one, but this lets you go in some of the hospitality places and also, I believe, in the pit area and elsewhere. I bought this down to Lobitz's for $50, and I never knew these things existed till I did a little research on them. But there was one in 1959 when they first did in the new circuit there, not on the beach, and this was a 61, and I was quite surprised and quite happy that they had this. Next slide. This here is the first US 500 when they ran against Indianapolis in 1996. They ran 2 years like that. But anyways, this is a bronze and a silver one. Now, I do not know if they had the back pieces, but I know that I was sent this about a month later after this from one of the PR guys I know with, at that time, CART. So anyways, CART or Champ Car. But anyways, that's a set of those, and it was quite a nice surprise when I got that one. The boxes are the ones up there they came in. Next slide. Admission tickets of all kinds at Watkins Glen. That, you know, it's funny that, you know, these are collectible, but you go to Indianapolis and all those tickets, credentials, whether they're paper or whatever they are, there are certain people that collect the tickets from way back to 1911 all the way up to today, as well as the badges and all that, and the stickers that go on the windshield. But you see the prices there and all that, and gee whiz, that was expensive, we thought. But it was cheap, you know, in the early Watkins Glen ones. Well, even the one with WGI in '84, you know, it was quite cheap to go to races in those days. Next slide. These are SVRA paperweights that were given to me, and that was in 1985, and I never used them for paperweights, but I kept them wrapped up so you could use them for displays like this or whatever. And another year that I have a set of the neck pieces for the medals they win for first, second, and third. Next slide. This is the anniversary years of the more modern times, patches, a sticker, and then you had magnets that you could put on wherever you wanted to go, whether it was your refrigerator or whatever, and you could break them out and do whatever you want on the 50th anniversary and the 60th and the 40th. So that's neat there. I also have home, and I think I did it in another show, the 10th anniversary like Christmas seals. They were green with a race car on them celebrating the 10 years of racing at Watkins Glen. There was another one that they did in 1972, which was the 25th anniversary, which I did another show. I didn't think you wanted to see that again for a while. Next slide. Now look very close on this program. This is the first race in 1948. Now, erase from your mind everything until I tell you what happened. The Frank Griswold one and the Briggs Cunningham one were on this program originally. I bought this, I talked about it and negotiated for it about 25 years ago at Fall Carlisle and bought it in following week at Hershey, Fall Hershey. I paid $200 for this. I added the following: Bill Milliken, Cameron Argensinger, Otto Linton, Denver Coronet, and Heg Kassan. And then I can't get any more because the rest of them are all passed on. Now the next slide is inside. I was able to collect the following autographs on that program, being Donald Brubaker Sr., or to us, Mr. B, Lester Smalley, Burr Stone, who was the fire chief here, Walt Broyhouse, who was worked at the Cornell Aeronautical. He was the chief timer and scorer for the first 3 races here at Watkins Glen. And the first announcer, Smith Hepstone Oliver. And I had this program sent down by way of Tom James, and he got Smith, or Hemp we call him, to autograph this. I never met Hep in person, but we corresponded back and forth by letter and through Tom James. And so that's the ones I could get for autographs in that on that part of the program. But I doubt if I'll ever add on to it because Otto's the only driver left. So, next slide. This I got at Lobitz's. This is the last time they had the German Grand Prix at the Avis. And it's a small program. It's a little like if you went to early Silverstones, they were small, but they were quite informative. But the only handicap was that if you didn't know how to read German, you were kind of at a disadvantage. But you know, you can read Pig German very easily, and you pretty much know what's going on. But this is on they used to call the Wall of Death, the banking and the north end of the Avis. The tower is there still yet, but the banking isn't. It was dismantled toward modern times before the turn of the century, but it was built in 1936, ready for the 1937 Avis race. One of the few times that the German Grand Prix was at Avis. The first time was in 1926, and the second time was this year. Oh, they ran other races there, but the major event. So, next slide. This is Elkhart Lake. This is the last year on public roads. And, of course, programs were still cheap in those days, whole 50 cents. In those days, we thought it was expensive. But anyways, Bob, and it's Owen or something, I can't remember, drew this here, and you see it says car 60. He and his father drew the cover for the 51 one, because 50 was just 8 pages. It was page, and it was stapled. It was a green background on black letters. But anyways, you look at that real close, and who do you think it is? Nope. You'd swear it was Freddie Wacker, but it isn't. It's Bob. He drew that himself. That's a 6. See, Freddie always had an 8 on his helmet. And this here, but that's the last one on public roads before they went to Road America in 1955. And it's nice. I finally got 2 of these. One that somebody had done a lot of homework on was, taken on race day and wrote down corrections or wrote down who drove or had been substituted and all that. But anyways, next slide. This I got at Hershey a couple years ago, and it's AAA sprint car race. And I liked the artwork a lot. And the older programs, I don't care what it is, the artwork is the greatest in the world as far as I'm concerned. You may not think it, but it's like posters of the early era. They're great. Or movie posters, what they call lobby posters. But anyways, this is quite neat, and this is before George Weaver was involved with Thompson. And it was still an oval. The first road course part of it didn't happen until 1952. So, next slide. This is locally. This is Shangri-La, and it's 1949. And And it was a really expensive program, as you see, 15 cents. But this is a neat little program. It tells a lot, all you want to know and everything. And of course, they had AAA Indy cars there and stuff. But this was neat. I've got several other ones, but I thought this one would be much more colorful as far as the red and the black on it. Next slide. This is a AAA rule book. This is a 1948. And of course they change every year, but the same format as far as the cover and all that until they quit racing. AAA quit racing. You'd get these rule books. And I finally managed to get a hold of one of these. Walter Miller had some, and I bought one 15 years ago. Next slide. This is a vest pocket reference book, for records and all that. And of course, over the years, that's grown a lot, until we have computers, or I refer to as toy TVs, that you can go sit down and get these. This here, you pull it out of your pocket and you had that, and that's one of the older ones in real form. I have several others. They're like 1952 and 53, but I copied somebody else's. But I've gotten these at Hershey over the years. So you can see the comparison and the artwork and all that, but it was neat to carry them because you didn't have much press room like we have today. Next slide. These are the rule books of, well, it would be modern times then, for NASCAR. And I got this through a friend in NASCAR that was Harry Gant's press director. Next slide. Now we go to patches. I believe this is the way it goes. It's Trans Am. Everybody's seen the SCCA Trans Am. The original Pocono one and Laguna. I've got some others. The one I left to last, the Watkins Glen High School Sports Car Club, we had a club in when I was in school in 1959, 60, and 61. There are not many of them around. That's a hand-done machine done on a hand machine out of Chicago, and they were like $10 a piece. Of course, being in school, you didn't have a lot of $10 to go do that. And I had probably 10 or 15 of them done, and that was one of the clubs that we were involved in. Now, the Mercedes and the steering wheel. There was a silhouette in Road and Track, and that's where that came from, and the steering wheel's from Road and Track. The rest is all done by the seat of the pants there, as you see. Next slide. Okay, BARC, Binghamton Automobile Racing Club, their patch, which was neat. The IMRRC used twice. First as a SCCA's first pro thing, and then it was a SCCA booster for national events. And then the first round of Glen Region Tech Safety Inspector, which was felt, but they had other patches after that. So, next slide. And circuits. We have one from Summit Point, and we have, through the courtesy of Roy Bergman, he managed to able to get me a full set of Nelson's Ledgers and the Great Pumpkin Race, and patches, and also the badges, the aluminum badges. Next slide. And the MGs were here in '73, and that was neat, a neat show. Plus Glen Region ones and Finger Lakes fun one year. And if Oscar was here, I put that in specially because that was one of the patches he did along with the stickers. And Oscar has been nominated for SCCA's Hall of Fame. And he's done a lot for the sport, both road race and oval track and whatever. And he's a great person for the sport. Next slide. And of the modern day, you have the Firehawk. That was the first one, and which happened in October, the first 24-hour. Of course, we all froze to death during the night because it wanted to rain and sleet a little bit. And a lot of us had a nickname for the Firehawk. If you didn't want to say Firehawk all the way, you called it Fire Chicken. And then, of course, Chase, Lincoln, Trans Am, and then the Ford reunion, that was a neat patch there. And one of the many generations of Goodyear. Next slide. The USAC, that's of many different versions of USAC patch, probably the one they use today, and the Can-Am, Canadian American Challenge Cup. And in 1964, during the U.S. Grand Prix weekend at Seneca Lodge, John Bishop and a few others got together and started laying the foreground to the Can-Am, which would happen in 1966 as a 6-race series until 68. Now, the Scrutineer one here, there's there's 2 versions. That's 2.3, and then there was one of the configuration today. They also had stickers for the U.S. Grand Prix, which was really the approved sticker that allowed you to race in the U.S. Grand Prix. Next slide. And I was always happy to finally get one of these of Pure Oil or Union 76. Next slide. And in Formula One, I was able to get a Yardley BRM and one of the several versions of Graham Hill's Embassy Racing. And of course, there's one of the very, very early Gold Leaf Team Lotus, and then the John Player Team Lotus thing. Next slide. This is one of Abe Ketchum's, and I have one, but since I moved, that was 5 years ago, and I haven't got it much unpacked yet. In 1981, in the Lancia pit, or in the hospitality, they had these ashtrays. And of course, the wind blew one up in Abe's hand, and the wind blew one up in my hands. So anyways, that's one of the ashtrays we have here. Next slide. This one I bought at Indianapolis 2 years ago. And there are many different ones, I better put this up here, of Champion. And I liked it because it had the flag system on it. And I think I paid probably $60 for this, but it was well worth it to me. Next slide. This one's sort of a rare one. This is Texaco and for the U.S. Grand Prix, and we came by this on eBay. And it's quite collectible. This is one of the, well, this for me is the first one I ever saw, but there were probably more around. Of course, they were at Watkins Glen. Next slide. This is one of many different designs of SCCA ashtrays. If you look in the old sports car, you'll see the different versions. And I got this at Watkins Glen 2 years ago, and it's a little bit bigger than what you see there. And but that's one of them. There was a clear glass one, and there was another one that was similar to this, but a little smaller. Next slide. Now this one here looks like a porcelain plate, doesn't it? Wrong. This here, there were 6 of these done. They were done for the Paris Auto Show in 1965, 65, and the French Grand Prix. People's picture on these were Jim Clark, Graham Hill, Mike Spence, Bruce McLaren, and I think I got all 6, except the Cooper Mini. There were 6. Do you know what this might be used for? It's an ashtray. This one doesn't have the burns in it like a couple of mine. I found 5 of these at Hershey one year, and I paid $200 for them. There was a 6th one. At Indianapolis 2 years ago, I found The Jim Clark one I didn't have. And, oh, Jackie Stewart was the other, I left one on. The Jim Clark one I didn't, it wasn't in that set. So I have all 6 now. But there's just a little thin thing there you'd put your cigarette on. But you look in a display case and you'd swear they're a porcelain plate, and they aren't. But and they're autographed, but you know, they're printed autographed. They've been autographed and all that. So the next slide. This is one of many I have in my own collection of the registered car stickers that go on the car from USAC. Of course, CART did that stuff too, and AAA, but this is, I just happen to have this one handy instead of trying to find the notebook with all the rest of them. Because you go to Indy, you get this sticker, we'll say, in USAC times, then you get a little circular sticker after you go through tech inspection. And then you get a square sticker. That lets you go qualify. So you have to have actually 3 stickers. Next slide. Everybody who's been to the real Can-Am in the early days of the series of 6, no, this is more than 6, this is when they went to 11. But anyways, this was the sticker with the trophy, the likeness of the trophy. And some races used this as, when you went through tech inspection, then that was the official sticker that certified that you had been through tech inspection in Can-Am. But J-Wax, or Johnson's, sold a lot of J-Wax. I know that, I used it. So, next slide. Now, I've got lots of shadow stuff, but this is some of the page 1 of all the stuff I have. In the 1970, I got it San Jovite in 1970. And it's, you know, the little bitty shadow. The next year, it was a conventional shadow. And then by 72, you had the regular shadow of the there, and the shaky shadow, and then UOP, and that little patch is what was on the t-shirt, not t-shirt, the polo shirt pocket. So anyways, that's some of their other stickers. There's a series stickers in 78 and some other ones that over the years, but I had a good contact with Don Nichols, and he'd send me with one of the mechanics, and I could get what I needed for stickers. I only lacked 2 of having a complete set of shadow stuff that I know exists. Next slide. There's some more of it, and they also had the colored one up there with red and blue. They also did a reverse one. In other words, you could peel the back off that and it was looking at you. There was also one you put in the inside of a window and stuck it on, double-sided. And you went on, and there was other different ones, and that's some of the other parts. Can't remember, like, we get to it if I had more put in here. Next slide. No, we're going to Walter Wolf. Walter Wolf stuff, and then the ones I didn't put in were the 3 winner stickers, which is Wolf Head, you know, Argentina, Monaco, and Canada. And that's all, and a picture, one with Jody Scheckter, a sticker with Walter Wolf stuff. Next slide. There it is there. I couldn't remember if I put that, and plus the other thing there. But the wing, the wolf's heads I don't have on there. Okay, next slide. This is familiar to all of us if you followed Ferraris and the North American racing team. This is a rather large sticker, and it originally was stuck to something, but it was given to me. You could tell where they'd peeled it off. But Luigi Canetti's team. And of course, you know, in 1964, the Ferraris came in blue and white colors at Watkins Glen for the U.S. Grand Prix in Mexico, because the old man got into a contest with the FIA and the Italian Automobile Club for not producing enough LM Ferraris. And so he says, there'll never be any more red Ferraris. Well, it came 1965, and when they started races, they were red again. So they kissed and made up. Next slide. This here is of the modern times, a little promotion sheet of what went on at that year at the Glen, and it's some neat little colored artwork and all that. And so, anyways, I thought I'd throw that in there, and so you could see that. Next slide. And also inner series, a lot of them did, stickers or cardboard things of scheduled races in Cup Series, and this is Interstate's version, which is just really nice. Next slide. This here is an armband, and this is at Sebring. They were done in 1971 and 72. There was also another for the 12-hour, and there was also another one that said visiting official. And you got those issued, certain race officials got those, and they let you go pretty much anywhere. I've got two of these. This one was Cameron Argensinger's, and he gave me. And but the last 2 years at Sebring was run by Alec Ullman. They used these as a senior armbands. Next slide. This is one of the many press associations armbands, the International Grand Prix Press Association, and there was the American Racing Press Association. I got this armband from, bought it on eBay, and that's Jabby Krombach, who was a French journalist, and I got to know real well. And I paid $150 for this, but that's one of the Anye armbands. And if you were going to races regularly, you went through several of them because it would get wet. But I was fortunate enough to get this. So, and the little added stickers you see, Monaco and the one for Canada, they were the extra special ones. It said that you had signed your indemnity form, and this allowed you out in the photography area where not everybody was allowed. So they were for different races. And then some before, by 1978, 79 and 80 and like that, you got a little sticker there that said CSI approved. That was, you were recognized by the FIA. It's your designated photojournalist or whatever you want. But next slide. This is advertising with either different drivers, Coca-Cola, and you had Richard Petty stuff and all that, and Pepsi and all that. But they're neat collectible things, and there was some other ones that you could collect over the years in NASCAR. Next slide. This here is a badge from Sebring. It has a bracket on the back. It's like a badge bar where you put your SCCA, Glen Region, or Finger Lakes Region badges on what they call a badge bar with the grill on the car. And this is of Sebring 12 Hours of Endurance. They did a patch, and I think I did a patch. I got it in here, and I know I got a sticker of this. This was sold to the public. ARCF ones were hard to come by, although I've got 3 of them. After a while, you could get them, which was Automobile Racing Club of Florida. But this was sold, and they also did little ashtrays, and they did a pin, a colorful pin like this for your lapel and all that. Next slide. There's one of the little ashtrays that has that. Now, when you go get the patch, there are 3 different ones because there's a different saying up there. International is there, but there's some other little thing underneath the Grand Prix thing that they added to it. So it makes you 3 different badges, or images, whatever you want to call it. Next slide. This one here is the 2nd annual Finger Lakes Invitational race in October 1966. Today we know it as the fun one, but that didn't come about till about 1969, somewhere's in there. But this is your thank you to workers, a key fob. And I came by this in, I guess it was up at Dunkirk, when I used to go there to a swap meet. Next slide. This is what you got in 1949 to be a starter in the weekend of 1949 Sports Car Grand Prix. And it's blowed up more than what it appears on the screen. This is from the estate of Jim Carson, who drove an MG pretty much over the years, at least at Watkins Glen. And this was his first year, so he told his mother he was going up to watch Watkins Glen, but he went up to race. Well, it got him in trouble because one of the photographers sent pictures back. He didn't know they were coming. His mother opened them up, and she was furious. She took and tore them all up. So he was banned for 2 years. He couldn't go back to Watkins Glen till he got of age. This is what Carson told me. I got to know Jim fairly well. Next slide. This here is what you got in 1951 for a finisher. And it's a Zippo lighter. And so this came out of England. We seen it on eBay, and I was quite surprised as what they gave you a trinket. You know, I call it a trinket. Thank you for. But the guy by the name of Hewitt was from England, and he lived for a short time in Washington, D.C. I imagine he worked for the British government. I don't know, but he ran 2 races in SCCA event. Bridgehampton of 1951, and he didn't finish. It was an MGTD. And at Watkins Glen, and he was 8th overall. And so we managed to get this for $100. But the guy who had bought the estate from Hewitt's estate, this didn't fit into his collection because all the rest were European races. So they put it on the eBay, and here it is. Next slide. Now you really got to be thirsty if you want to fill this up. They gave these out when Valentine sponsored the races to the fastest lap in the race, fastest lap in practice. They're Steins, and you know they're really hard to find. All this one doesn't have a winner on it. Mike Simmel's got one with Jackie Eakes. This one was on eBay, and I think this was a promotional Stein, but it's the same thing, only it doesn't have a winner on it. But anyways, if you want to drink a lot of beer, you would really be able to fill that baby up and you'd be all set. And we got this pretty cheap, it was $75 somewhere in there. Next slide. This here, if you went to the SCCA convention one year, which I believe was in St. Louis, this was a commemoration of SCCA's anniversary. Believe it or not, this has still got Jim Beam in it. And the other one I bought at one of the old drivers and crew members auction some years ago. But it's this one here I got when we went on the second boat trip in the convention we went to from Miami to Nassau, and we stopped at Little Stirrup Key. Well, we looked around during the day when we got to Washington, and we went into this liquor store, and that was there, and I said, well, I ain't going to carry that with me, so if it's here when we come back from Nassau, I'll get it. Well, it'd been there quite a while because the tax sticker was fading. So, of course, that night when we left Washington, it was the State of the Union, so we got out of there on the train, went south, and got on the boat and had a heck of a good time. Next slide. This here is a periscope. And they were used in 1952, 53, 54, and 55. And you'd see them around the grandstand area if there was a lot of crowd. This side here tells the makes of cars, and 2 sides of this will have the Grand Prix, Watkins Glen, and the other side, which would be looked in, had a place for a lap chart, but it was only for one race. But these cost around $150 back in 1954. And mine has survived since 1954, and I've only seen one other in my travels of these little periscopes. So it's a neat collector's piece. Next slide. We collect pins too, and this I got down at Lobitz's, and This is the California Sports Car Club, SCCA, not the regular California Sports Car Club, which was prior to this. Next slide. Now, I imagine you're all familiar with Reventlow automobiles in the thing called Scarab. Well, just before Christmas, I managed to see this on eBay, and I said, we have to have this. We've seen the cars run and all that, so this was a $75 deal. Well worth it. Next slide. This is one of the early NASCAR ones, which was a membership one. And there's been several different ways of displaying this. The swept wing cars disappeared after a while, but that's one of the very early ones around 1950 or 51, somewhere's in there. And they also, race officials had them too, wherever it were used. Next slide. Now, this is when AAA was racing, this was a lapel pin for a race driver, 1954. They were issued way back to about 1904. There were, I don't have that far back, but close. They issued them to race drivers, mechanics, and car owners. Each year there was something different on it. And this was next to the last before AAA got out of racing. Next slide. Now there's a NASCAR one. The one that's on the left of the screen is an official one. And the other one is another official one of 1920, got brain fade, can't make my mind run. 1962. Next slide. Here's an assortment of AAA and ARDC. That's a driver's pin, the ARDC. But they're over the different years, you know. There's 1941, which has the bigger one, and a 39 and 50 and all. But they're either a driver, mechanic, or an official. And these are quite expensive as you go toward the first time they issued them. But that was a common thing. I didn't put a AAA armband in here because I've got them in another show. Next slide. Is that it? Okay, I didn't see the end of this. But anyways, I've seen the beginning of it and put together in some ways, but I have not seen the end. But anyways, that's what you can collect. I didn't put any programs in because I did the programs the last time, other than the one of Thompson and like that, like Sebring or something like that. But you can see the wide variety of stuff that you can collect, from tickets and all kinds of stuff like that. And it's just neat. I've got one that has nothing to do, or has nothing on it like races, but it's a Sharpie. And I had Jackie Stewart sign it because he was running around, borrowed this pen I had, the Sharpie, and he was signing autographs with it, and he gave it back to me, and I said, can you sign this? Because this was the official Jackie Stewart autograph pen, and he did. So that was pretty neat, you know. And same way I did with Phil Hill. He was signing autographs, and I had him sign mine, and he says, sure, I'll do that. But as I say, there's pictures you can collect, posters you can collect, whatever else, armbands, whether they be the SCCA armband, and they had them in the early days, which would be it was red with the SCCA patch sewed on it and what your duties were. And they were used from about 1951 to close to at the end of 54. And I don't have one of them, but I remember seeing them, the AAA ones I did, the USAC ones. And and then there was some cart stuff that has a little pin that you had there. It says cart official and all this other things. But anyways, my mind is trying to search for whatever else. There were posters of AAA, not triple, yeah, AAA Floyd Bennett Field along with the buttons. But anyways, that's what you can collect. So I'll take questions if you want.
And Bill will take questions, and this is just a small part of his mission. He really has more than the Motor Racing Research Center. And he has Ida Lapino, memorabilia, ephemeral as the French would call it,
Yep.
Posters from fairgrounds, Hopalong Cassidy, and he just gave you a little preview of what he has. But do answer questions.
Questions? Yes.
Okay, just one thing I wanted to say, impressed me was the quality of your display photography. This is really good.
Mm-hmm. Well, Abe Ketchum did that. He put my PowerPoint together for me, which is neat. And as I started out at the beginning, I was on to thank Ted Marks and Abe Ketchum and Rick and Kevin Huey and also other individuals, and helped out a lot. Yes.
Bill, can you tell us a little bit about the Watkins tickets and not stickers, but the placards and that sort of stuff? They were all locally produced, right?
Yes, they were. The very first general admission ticket, which was done in 1953, so hang on to your wallets because it was expensive. It was a whole $1.25. It was done by Global. It was a little ticket. By 1955, they'd gotten a little bigger, but the price went up to $2, and then eventually went up and up. And the placards were printed probably at the Review or the Watkins Express at that time. And eventually we went from placards to stickers. And most likely the paper credentials were produced here, but the pit pass was like a baggage tag, reinforced so it wouldn't break and blow away. And they had them all through the years, through town and up on the hill, until Kendall came along, and then they had them with Kendall's emblem on it and all that stuff. Yes?
Bill, just as a side note, I was wondering about that Watkins Glen High School Sports Car Club, and if either you or JC knew anything about the history of that and how long it lasted.
Yes. It was born in 1959, and it lasted till 62, and then it was called the Glen Rod and Custom Sports Car Club, and I was its founder and its first president, 1959 to 61. And the reason how we got Mercedes on there, because Severn Johnson, who was a good friend of mine, designed the patch, and he was a big Mercedes fan at that time. And he said, we got to have a steering wheel. Well, we took that from Road and Track. Any more? Thank you so much for coming, and I'm really hope you enjoyed it. And next time, if I do another one of these, you'll probably see some Bob Duell posters that I bought from him. And but this was primarily another what I call trinkets. Thank you so much.
Bill, that was excellent. That was terrific. You know, looking at those tickets and those badges, I'm reminded that people would counterfeit them, and my father would sign some of them, and there were people who would do that sort of thing. And it reminded me this week, I was down at Daytona, which is probably the most security-conscious place in the country, and it's almost impossible to get in there. And Glenda Gephardt and I were invited the other night, I think it was Wednesday night, to the John Bishop Memorial. John died last year, and as you all know, John was the moving force here at the Motor Racing Research Center and big supporter over the years. And they were having a little reception, and following that, they were having a Road Racing Drivers Club event. And on our way out, I was recounting to Glenda that I'd known John since I was 13, and he'd been an uncle, and he'd given me some advice. And when I was 13 or 14, he said, always put a blue blazer in the back of your backpack or whatever, because it'll get you in a lot of places. Well, we had a rental car, and we were going to that dinner, and you had to go way inside the track, very circuitous route. It was very difficult to find. I said, how are we going to get in this place? We don't have any credentials. We have nothing. And Glenda said, well, I think they have our name at the gate. And I said, I hope so, because I don't want to be late. We had just flown in. And I had on this Watkins Glen tie, IMRRC tie, and my blue blazer. And we were waved by 16 different security people. Nobody asked our name or anything, but I think that just maybe I looked okay. And so Glenda said, well, John Bishop was right on that. That's a good credential.
One thing I'll add to this is he was talking about forged tickets. In 1965, I was in Cameron's office, and they had gotten a forged ticket, several forged tickets. Everything was right on them except the serial number. They're all the same. And they were done out of the University of Pittsburgh, they found out. So you do check them for authenticity.
Well, folks, come on back over for a little reception. We want to thank you for all of you folks contributing to our 2014 sponsorship, and now we're about to ask you for 2015. So the cycle continues. We had a very good year. Really and truly, it is that sponsorship that keeps us going. That and the car raffle, and I know a lot of you participated in that. And we made a little bit of money this year, and we're putting it in our rainy day fund. But this basically is how we are here, because of people like you. And thank you for everything you've done to keep our doors open. See you across the hall.